For the first time ever, there will be 3 women on the Supreme Court if Elena Kagan is confirmed, of course. That's another step toward diversity. But in other ways, the High Court is more exclusive than ever. Here's how. For example, 4 of the justices will have grown up in New York City, with 8 of the 9 from the East or the West Coast. All 9 will have attended either Yale or Harvard Law School, and 8 will have served as judges. And for the first time ever, there won't be a Protestant on the court, despite the fact that more than 50% of Americans are Protestant. Interesting, right? It hasn't always been this way. 50 years ago, 6 justices were from the nation's heartland. Only 3 had attended Harvard or Yale. Protestants were easily the court majority, and you had a former governor and former U.S. senator as justices, but they were all white men. So there have been some changes, some toward diversity, but many really the other way. What do those shifts say about the court and the effect that they might have? So joining us is Robert George. He's a professor of politics at Princeton University and a former judicial fellow at the Supreme Court. So is there a concern that the justices are so similar in background and work experience that it might affect their decisions?
Well, a lot of people are wondering where the representation is from the heartland and from all the different religious denominations that we have in the country. Not a single Protestant, as you said, will be on the court if Elena Kagan is in fact confirmed. And this is despite the fact that not only are 50% or more of Americans Protestants, but a very large percentage of them are evangelical Protestants, and there's not a single evangelical amongst the justices, despite the fact that there are some very distinguished evangelical Protestant legal scholars and judges out there. You would begin that list with Michael McConnell. How much should that matter, Professor, though, because we're supposed to have this separation of church and state, so and one's religion should not play into the way that they and affect their rulings on the court? Well, it's interesting. Throughout our history, there has been an effort to make sure that all of the different religious denominations were represented on the court, precisely so no one would think that the court was being run by a single religious denomination or 1 or 2 religious denominations. For a long time, there was a quasi-official, I think I'd put it that way, quasi-official Catholic seat to make sure that there was at least 1 Catholic on the court, so and a quasi-official Jewish seat. There was even a quasi-official Southern seat. Hugo Black occupied that for a while.
Let me ask you this. So considering all the rulings in the court in the recent years and the justices, do you see a difference? Do you think it's made a difference that there are so many Catholics and few Protestants? John Paul Stevens, the last Protestant, and there are now, what, 2 Jewish members of the court? So
there are 2 now, and if Elena Kagan is confirmed, there will be 3.
But I mean, has that made a difference, though, recently? I think this is one of the most conservative courts we've had in recent history.
Well, whether it's a conservative court or not, I think is a debatable question. Whether it's had an impact, though, is also a debatable question. It's just impossible to know what the impact has been. And, of course, you shouldn't jump to the conclusion that a justice will be more conservative because he or she is a Catholic or a Protestant or Jewish, because today the lines of division are not ideologically between the different religious denominations. They're within the religious denominations. Conservative Catholics, Protestants, and Jews have a lot more common with each other politically and morally and socially than they have with liberal members of their own religious denominations.
Hey, listen, I wish I had a lot more time to talk to you about this, but I want to ask you just real quickly here about the judicial ranks and about looking outside of the judicial ranks. That has brought a bit of controversy here. Do you see a problem with that with Elena Kagan not having served as a judge before?
No, I don't see a problem with that at all. There is a long tradition in this country of non-judges serving. It's been a while since someone served who didn't have judicial experience, but the most recent Chief Justice before Chief Justice Roberts, the person Chief Justice Roberts replaced, Chief Justice Rehnquist, himself wasn't a judge before he went on to the Supreme Court. He worked in Washington, the Justice Department. You haven't mentioned one other common factor, at least with the last 3. The last 3 nominees, including Elena Kagan, all 3 were undergraduates at Princeton.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And?
Well,
you're touting your school? Is that what
ambitious young people will perhaps see that there's a recipe here. What you need to do is you need to go to Princeton and then be Catholic or Jewish and then go to either Harvard or Yale law schools. That seems to be the recipe.
Well, I mean, you're a professor at Princeton as well, so maybe it says a lot about what's happening at your school. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's not a bad thing that Yale and Harvard and Princeton turn out some of the smartest and brightest minds in the country. Hey, listen, we have to run.
I like that inference. Thanks.
We have to run. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
All right.